As much as Node Krai coming in 6.0 for a whole year, the biggest aspect that's going to change for Genshin Impact is how lore and story is going to be presented. Now, I don't usually say this phrase, but Node Krai literally changes everything. Hey guys, what's up? Aru. In the developer livestream, first let's start with Node Krai, Oyo dropped what might be the densest but also the most vague lore preview in Genshin's history and announced a big change in how the game is going to release content. Cryptic visuals for some factions, specific items, people, and locations, and the long-awaited return of the moon motif, which has been a long-standing theory since the start of Genshin Impact. This isn't going to be a full-on region like usual, no. It's going to be the longest sub-area before we move to Snezhnaya, but despite it not being a region like the 7, it's for some reason the central convergence point of everything located at the edge of the world. From fragmented storylines since 1.0 to the convergence of all 7 elements and the traveler's final objective to finding the truth of the world. So if we're to understand why Node Krai is going to take a whole year, we first need to see its key points of lore and why so many factions are converging here. Despite all the factions and lore that they have, the main focus of all of this is the moon. Not a regular region like the other 7, but is a central point for all other regions as being. A central city-state littered with various factions all wanting to claim the ancient moon's remnants. Even the statues of the 7 seem to tell a story, frozen in time, wrapped in icy auras and mystery, and covering what the first Cryo Archon looks like, and for us to possibly unseal, learning more about what's supposed to be the next region, Snezhnaya. To understand Node Krai, you have to understand what Genshin's storytelling has been building toward. The devs say that there have always been 2 directions. One is the journey through the nations, which is the Archon quest, and the other is our search for the Traveler's sibling, which is through Dainsif's quest. But over time, the lore's canvas grew too wide, filled with books, artifacts, and scattered quests, which led to the separation between the player's perceived vision through the lore and story and the devs' goals from the beginning. But that's where Node Krai steps in, and its stated goal, return the stars in the canvas to their rightful place. Much like returning the moon back to the sky, it's also connected to Alice and the Hexen Circle's philosophy in returning the stars in Simulanka, as well as Kaya's mentioning of the world as a huge stage play for actors in the game. And now it seems like the devs are moving toward this exact location. Much of the lore will now be expected to be part of the story instead of being a non-voiced facet of the game that the casual audience rarely experiences. Moving on, Node Krai isn't a traditional region like others. It's more of a free-reigning city-state in Snezhnaya. But this is actually a melting pot with less concrete laws for various factions to enter as diplomatic visitors or politically invade. It's also located at the edge of Teyvat, and it was the first location to fall when the Cataclysm occurred. That detail matters because Node Krai would be closest to Khaenri'ah and the Abyss, but also because the Abyss here is vastly different. Khaenri'ah is located in the Abyss, which makes Node Krai being on the edge of the world the perfect point to explain everything to us in detail before we move on to the Abyss itself, and then possibly Celestia. This also explains why Snezhnaya often takes on missions and expeditions to the Abyss, further pointing out that Snezhnaya is just sitting on the biggest Abyss entrance compared to other regions, as well as the previous era of Hyperborea, which initially started the fall of the Moon Sisters. In Node Krai, the Abyss is so strong that it can gather and form something called the Wild Hunt, a Calamity-class event. Inspired by Norse myth which can be made of fae, spirits, or undead, this Wild Hunt is composed of abyssal spirits rather than beasts, which raises questions on the ley lines of Node Krai. Since spirits only come up whenever ley lines are exposed, which means that Node Krai not only has exposed ley lines, it's also being affected by a huge degree of abyssal corruption, creating malformed spirits of the past as part of the Wild Hunt. This all makes sense when you read the Long Night artifact set as well as the finale of the Deep Galleries. Now this Abyss crisis draws in multiple groups with various motives all pointing to the same goal. For now, we have the Light Keepers, the Frostmoon Scions, the Voynich Guild, the Fatui, and the Wild Hunt. The Light Keepers is an ancient group guarding Node Krai's borders against the Wild Hunt, so you can expect multiple lighthouses on the outer borders of Node Krai, much like what happens with Simulanka. The Frostmoon Scions are locals blessed with lunar power, likely from the Frost Moon, drawing from Celtic-style beliefs where celestial bodies like the moon and stars are divine. They can use air quotes magic, which was mentioned before but never actually explained. One such magic is alchemy and chemia, the Homa rituals, adepti arts, or hydromancy and pyromancy, which all draw from certain elemental origins but never explicitly explained in detail. The Voynich Guild, which looks like Zaun or Fleuve Cendré, a merchant and trade syndicate based on the city's town of Nasha, taking on secret commissions and acting as an incognito version of the Adventurers Guild led by the boss lady running the Curatorium of Secrets subgroup. And of course, the Fatui who were appointed to Nod Krai under the Pale Star Edict, planning to steal the moon for themselves, as well as several harbingers planning conspiracy schemes within the region to cause chaos. The Wild Hunt, as mentioned before, is invading due to corroded ley lines and are headed straight for the moon as well. Rift Hounds and Rift Wolves act as vanguard, while the ghostly malformed Spirit Army follows behind to destroy whatever remains, carrying the bodies and faces of fallen comrades. Now, there are 6 other factions in Nod Krai still under wraps, which means we'll be getting another dev stream in the future, highlighting the outer regions that wish to enter Nod Krai as well. Now let's talk about the moon. The Song of Vulcan Moon isn't just a monthly pass, it's actually a prophecy. The devs confirmed that Tevat originally had 3 moons tied to the world's birth alongside the Dragon Lords and the Dragon King, Nibelung. Interestingly, apart from the Travelers, only Nibelung and Nod Krai are directly related to all 7 elements, which might bring up more information of the origins of the world than we think. The moon also isn't just a celestial body, it's the purest form of power, much similar to the purest form of phlogiston, which is light, and that's exactly why everyone wants it. Some want to consume its power, some want to destroy it, some want to protect it, and others want to use it for their experiments, so we can expect the 5 sinners to be part of this battle royale along with the Hexen Circle. Not only that, the moon's influence stretches across the VAT since the first version. From the name Mondstadt itself, Mond meaning moon, the moon crescent and the spiral abyss, A and the plane of Euthymia, Nahida calling herself the moon, Dragon Spine's murals, the murals in Surumi Island, the stories in moonlit bamboo forest, as well as Before the Sun and Moon, and even the recent Natlan with an alleged fragment of the moon and a portrait depicting Xiuhcoatl or Nibelung and the 3 moons in full detail. Oh, and the ancient moon fragments, of course. Unlike other nations, Nod Krai doesn't draw from historical civilization, it's built on an abstract idea, which are actors on a stage. Kaya once described Tevat as a grand play in Valyrian Mirage, and Nod Krai makes that literal. Here, people don't seem to be bound by region or nationality, but they're portrayed as people individually, making Nod Krai a place where people from various other regions make a name for themselves, rather than being a people of Nod Krai. Night City is the closest the devs describe Nod Krai as, since it's a place known for individual people looking for fame or money than the place itself. A melting pot of different origins merged together into one region, all after the same goal, which is again the moon. If it isn't here that there's a moon fragment here or an entire moon, then the devs made sure that that was the point of Nod Krai. That said, some real-world or other game inspirations do exist, which may imply their lore and story revelations in the future. Visually and thematically, Nod Krai resembles a mix of a lot of things. Iceland and Norway in real life, as well as Ardskellige and the Howling Fjords from the games with fjords and long winters. So expect to see landscapes similar to this, but also shed some light on the northern fjord lands of Hyperborea, which is where Snezhnaya sits on currently. Cyberpunk/steampunk styles with corrupt or crime-ridden dystopias like Zon, Night City, Hive Cities from 40k, and Gotham. Dragon Lake might simply mean that we'll get more dragon lore on which is real and which is a creation or evolution like Saurians. But it would also mean that this place is where the past is echoed into the new and recurring era. Just like how the Great Ones in Dark Souls 2 are an echo of the Lord Souls in Dark Souls 1, and are just another kingdom that repeats the same Lord Souls regardless of who they are. But that would mean that Tevat is in an endless cycle of death and rebirth with recurring stories, and there's no one that can change that fate. Of which, hello, look at that, it seems like we're the ones who can. Hopefully you've understood that random Souls lore. Next is Crossbell State from Trail series, which makes Nod Krai a central hub of trade and commerce between nations. Finally, Tristram from the Diablo series, which is the main confrontation with Diablo and the center of the initial story and the lore. While some of these locations may be less prevalent than others in their respective universes, they all embody the concept of a central city or region, which are anchors that define the tone and direction of their stories, in my opinion. The first major figures that we'll meet in Nod Krai will be the long-missing Varka, as well as possibly Seamus Pegg and Frederica Gunhilder. Yes, Jean and Barbara's parents. They arrive as part of the Knights of Favonius, investigating the growing and evolving expedition case in Nod Krai. But that's not all, multiple harbingers are here too. Embedded in the deep lunar conspiracy, just like in every region before, this time they're focused on finding the remnants of the ancient moon. Finally, the devs talk about the future of the game. They say that that it began as an open-world RPG, but it's slowly been evolving into a living, breathing story world. They're making big changes on how the story unfolds and how everything else reacts to it. Characters will no longer be isolated to regions or hangout quests, which means that many of the quests will likely include a playable character or two, which I honestly think they should have done before in other regions. But they did say that it would cost more game memory or technology from individual devices that we use, in which case they said that it would improve along with their game anyway. All in all, the devs are scaling up and the lore is being brought front and center along with the story. More integration between dialogue, character stories, and some added visual storytelling. Nod Krai isn't just a plot twist in the general story, it's also the turning point for the direction the devs are taking from now on, especially with the lore. For anyone who's expecting the game to change, then this could be it. The game from now on is promising to show more and say less, which is what many players have been wanting to see since Inazuma and Sumeru. Hopefully what they promise is coming, and Nod Krai will be the first iteration of that change. And there we go, a quick breakdown and theory of the Nod Krai developer stream. Bear in mind, Nod Krai won't come until 6.0, so what the devs say can and would still change at some point. But it's great to know that the devs are taking a new direction with their storytelling, which is a win for both casual and lore players. Now, I have no clue what the devs are doing in terms of the meta and the tryhards, but I'm also waiting for floor 13 because right now we have 12 floors and there's that final floor at the top of Spiral Abyss, which I really want to know why it's there. That's it for now, so I'll see you guys in the next video, yeah? If you watch this video till the end, then I suggest leaving a like, commenting on your thoughts, as well as hitting the subscribe and the bell icon for more of my content. So as always, stay mad, theorists. Bye!